Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to take a look at the Transformers 2 Series 86 Commander Class Ultra Magnus. Now this review will be my 2,000 subscribers special. Thank you so much for 2,000 subscribers. I will be shouting out 2 completely random subscribers of mine towards the end of this review, around when I'm doing the final thoughts on the figure. So make sure you watch till the end of the video or the review, and maybe you could get a shout out. Please do let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section below. Is it a pickup or pass? Now let's take a look at the figure's packaging. So here we have the packaging. Starting at the very front, we have Transformers on the side. We have Ultra Magnus in white text with a white out symbol. We have Studio Series in black text. We have the Transformers the movie logo looking very classic. We also do have 86 and 21 because this is the 21st figure, part of the Studio Series 86 subline. And we have a huge image or artwork shot of Ultra Magnus looking very cool in this awesome battle pose with this huge rifle and some really cool debris and laser bolts and explosions behind him looking absolutely awesome. And if we do look at the top of the box, we have another Transformers the movie logo looking very classic there, and a small little image or kind of artwork shot of the Autobot shuttle from the 1986 film. And if we do look at the side of the box, really just kind of a downsized, smaller version of that image of Ultra Magnus from the front. We also do have 86 and 21 and Studio Series, and hopefully you can see at the bottom of the side of the box, we also do have Commander Class in several different languages. And if we do look at the other side of the box, really just kind of another version or reuse of that same image of the front of the box there, looking pretty cool. And if we do look at the back of the box, there's actually quite a bit to discuss and talk about. So the figure can transform in 43 steps. There's a product shot of Ultra Magnus in his robot, his truck mode, also showing off his included spring-loaded feature, and also showing off the extendable ramp in his truck mode. And one final image showing off his included backdrop. This is the Battle of Autobot City backdrop, and there's also a brief description or kind of bio, which I will read for you right now. It says Ultra Magnus leads defensive measures against the Decepticons invading Autobot City, and that's also written and shown off in several different languages. And that is pretty much it for the packaging. So let's now get into the review. So here we have the included backdrop. This is the Battle of Autobot City backdrop. Just quickly taking a look at the details, we have a huge image of an Autobot shuttle with some really cool explosions and some lasers and some damage to Autobot City. We have a really cool other Autobot shuttle flying in the sky with some really cool kind of smoke coming off of it or some flames. On this flap here, we also do have an Autobot symbol and Transformers going down the side. We also do have a Generations Autobot symbol in the corner there. And on this other flap, we also do have 8621 and Studio Series and half an Autobot symbol also on the area where you would display or kind of put Ultra Magnus. We also do have the classic Transformers the movie logo, which looks pretty cool there. And since this is a backdrop or sort of a display stand, you actually can grab Ultra Magnus and place him on there. I think that looks very, very cool. And that is pretty much it for the included backdrop. Let's now take a look at the details of Ultra Magnus's robot mode. Here we have Ultra Magnus in his robot mode. Let's take a look at the details, starting at the very top with a head sculpt. We have some luminous white for the face, some blue for the main helmet section, with some more white for the antennas or the ear sections, and some nice light blue light piping for the eyes. I do like the big beefy broad shoulders done in white and blue, with a very classic Autobot symbol at that shoulder there done in red and silver outlining. I do like the white for the hand and the bicep, with some more blue for this huge chunky form guard looking very menacing and opposing. I do like how strong and intimidating this figure looks. I do like the really nice kind of layered panel effect at the forearm. Probably could have used a few added pin-ups for the side of the arms and the forearms there. It's a bit bland. It's really just that solid blue and white color. I do like how classic and cartoony this figure looks, but if Hasbro wanted to do a bit of a stylized modern approach with the details and the pin-ups, I really wouldn't have minded. If they added like a bit of silver, maybe some red on the form, I think that would have been a nice detail to add. If we do look at the chest, I do like all the layers kind of folded on top of each other and kind of layered. I think it looks really cool, very mechanical. I do like the really nice dark transparent red pieces for the those kind of window or windscreen sections of the chest. And a really nice detail if you do have the matrix on the inside of the chest, which actually is sort of a gimmick, kind of a spring-loaded feature, which I'll show off a little bit later in the review, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But if you do have the matrix inside there, you actually will be able to see it through those two kind of windscreen or window sections. I don't have it in the chest right now because I will be taking a look at it, of course, during the accessory section part of this review, so make sure you stay tuned for that as well. But still a really nice detail that Hasbro did not have to do. But if we do look at the lower part of the figure, I do like this really cool kind of circular eye section. It actually does have this entire sort of hip skirt or kind of little skirt piece here, which you can actually move all these pieces on the side of the legs, the front, and of course the back of the figure can move out of the way to accommodate the articulation, which is really nice, which I'll show off how that works once I actually cover the articulation. And there's some more white for the top of the legs and the front of the legs. I do like the glossy, shiny blue for the front of the legs and the feet and the side as well. And speaking of the side, if we actually do look at that side profile there, overall, not looking too bad, actually very clean, very compact, very little arm kibble, back kibble, or leg kibble. That was actually definitely one of my main concerns for this Ultra Magnus figure, because just speaking from experience with the Kingdom and the Siege one, there was quite a bit of kibble, quite a bit of junk on the back of those figures, so I definitely think this is a massive improvement over those figures. And I do like the wheels on the side of the feet there, and I just have to say this now, if you don't know, in the truck and trailer mode, I think it's probably like 6 or 8 wheels, however many it is. If you do know the exact number, let me know in the comments. I can't remember or recall right now, but all the wheels are pins. This figure does roll like a dream in his element. I think it's so cool. If Hasbro wanted to actually kick this figure over a 10 out of 10 or over 100 out of 100, if all the wheels were rubber, that would be insane. We actually had some rubber wheels for a figure earlier in this year. It was the Transformers Legacy Evolution Deluxe Class Beachcomber, and if they had taken that same sort of rubber wheel design and actually added it on this Commander class, that would be insane. And I do hope maybe for the future Transformers, for whatever line, Legacy or Studio Series, that would be an awesome thing to see, to have rubber wheels be actually like a normal thing, like a standard thing for figures. That'd be insane. But turning to the back of the figure, as I mentioned before, very clean, really well put away. Everything's tabbed in place, locked down, which is really good to see. I guess if you were being picky, there is a bit of a gap at the back of the head there, but definitely not the worst we've seen. If they wanted to, they probably could have added like a secondary panel there just to cover that up or fill that space in, but again, a very minor nitpick. But turning the figure back to the front so that we can then cover the articulation, starting at that head sculpt or that head, of course, it can look up and down, tilt side to side, look left and right. The arms, of course, are on ratchets forward and back, which is really nice to see. The arm can move out, unfortunately not on a ratchet. That's actually one of people's main complaints with this figure. I personally really don't understand why it wouldn't have a ratchet, considering how expensive this figure is. It's a Commander class, you know, I would say about $100, really depending where you buy it from, but it's pretty pricey. $90 to $100 is not cheap for an action figure, but I really think they should have added a ratchet, of course, not only because of the price, but also because Ultra Magnus is mostly famous for one classic trait, how big and long his shoulders are. So I've seen quite a few people review this figure on YouTube and elsewhere, and they've actually complained about their arm, the tolerance like drooping a bit, and as you can see, this one has already starting to do it. It's not the worst. I've seen some figures copies or some people's copies not even be able to hold a pose. Mine can for the most part, but I'm not sure how long that's going to last, so I really think they should have put a ratchet for the arm moving out, of course, just the same as it moving forward. I really don't understand that, but moving the arm back down, we can actually cover the articulation for the rest of the arm. So there is a bicep, and of course there is an elbow bend. And if we do look at the hand, there is actually a wrist rotation, which is really good to see. Very stiff swivel there. You also just have some finger articulation, which is really good to see. So if you do move all the fingers out, so the index finger or the pointer finger is separate from the other three. So there's actually a pin or a hinge at the base and also at the knuckles that can actually fold in and out as well. And these three remaining ones are actually, of course, connected or kind of a part of one piece. And again, the same articulation. There is a pin at pretty much the knuckle, and there's also one at the base, and that can fold in as well. And the thumb, in case you're interested, it is stock. It cannot move, which, to be honest, I really don't know why you would want to move the thumb. But if you do move that arm down, we can actually cover the waist and the entire skirt piece. So, of course, this piece or panel can fold up. These side ones as well to accommodate the leg articulation. There's also one on the back that you probably should move out as well. So the legs can kick forward and back on on ratchets, and just like the arm, unfortunately there is no ratchet kicking out, which fortunate enough on my copy it's actually pretty sturdy. It does hold the pose, it can kick out. Again, I'm not sure how long that's going to last, and other people's copies could be worse or better than mine. There's also some rotation at the top of the leg and a knee bend to a very good degree on ratchets, and the final point of articulation is the ankle pivot, which definitely could be better. Considering this is a commander class, that's not the greatest. I think that definitely could be better, but let me just quickly straighten up the figure, and then we can cover the many accessories included with this figure. Let me just put him back to a neutral pose. So starting off with probably two of his most iconic classic weapons, his shoulder kind of missile or launcher pieces, which of course two identical ones, one for each shoulder. As you would guess, there is a post on the actual weapon and a port on the figure. And if you didn't know, the actual missile piece is removable or separatable from the other piece. You can actually attach a blaster piece there, so you can actually fire off into battle, which I think is a pretty fun playable feature. But these just store on the shoulder right there. You technically could put these in any other mech tech port. There's quite a few on the figure, but the standard place we've seen these always in the G1 cartoon and other continuity we've seen this figure has always been on the shoulder there. And just plug those into place. And if you are wondering how do I know or make sure to put the right weapon on the right shoulder, just make sure this entire little kind of fin or spike piece is facing up, not down, and then you know you did it correctly. As for his next accessory, it's actually the Matrix of Leadership, which I'm pretty sure, in case you're interested, is the exact same sculpt as the previous ones we've seen, you know, with the Commander class. Kingdom Rodimus Prime, the Earthrise Optimus Prime. There's been many versions and variations with this Matrix, so we've definitely seen it all before, and it can store in the chest, but I'm going to show that entire feature of how to put the Matrix in the chest and the actual spring-loaded feature a little bit later in this review. Make sure you stay tuned for that, but a very solid Matrix. You actually can have the figure hold it, but it's pretty challenging. That is another kind of complaint or problem I have with this feature, or kind of this gimmick, is the Matrix is quite small. You know, this was originally made for Earthrise Optimus Prime. Yes, he was priced at a leader, but he was pretty much the size of a Voyager, but this is a commander class. I would say about double the size of some certain Voyagers, so he's pretty big. So this definitely probably should have been a bigger Matrix, because you can see how massive this figure is in comparison, but still a really fun inclusion. I do like the silver and the metallic orange and blue for the actual crystal. I think that looks really good. But moving on to his other accessories, he actually does come with quite a few blaster pieces. I'm actually really glad they didn't include that same old Siege Jetfire blaster piece, because we've seen that thousands and thousands of times. Not actually, but you know what I mean. We've seen it so many times, and I'm actually really tired of seeing it. And they actually included more in this year's PulseCon exclusive, the Power Links Hotshot and Jolt, which I'm about to review on the channel. Make sure you stay tuned for that. But that one also includes some more Siege Jetfire blaster pieces, so I'm pretty tired of seeing it. Hopefully they can retire that mold or that blaster piece soon. But we actually have this one. This is from the Siege Omega Supreme figure, which I'm actually really glad, because this is only the second time they've actually sort of reissued it or reused it. Of course, the original was with that figure, and now this one. They actually decided to change it. So before, it was actually a darker shade of red, and there was kind of more rock or kind of magma. It was supposed to look sort of like lava and sort of like a volcano style design. So they made it a bit more simple, really just kind of red and a bit of rock at the tip there, kind of the bottom section. So it's a bit more simple, same mold, but I'm actually really glad they decided to change it. So you actually can split this up into several different pieces. I think it's like 9 blaster pieces, which is pretty good. I typically kind of just put these to the side of the figure, but if you're one who really likes to pose them around in some crazy action poses, you know, and adds those effects pieces, this is perfect for you. And also included are actually 2 sort of spare or extra ones. So that tip I actually showed on that full stack combined one, it comes with 2 extras. So maybe in case you lose that one, or maybe if you just want like sort of a smaller one, you can use these for like his pistols and his weapons, which is a nice inclusion. I'm actually really glad we got a few spare on the side. As for his actual firepower to attach to those blaster pieces, he does come with this rifle or kind of welding weapon. So I'm pretty sure this is a reference to the 1986 film where the Autobots and Ultra Magnus are repairing their shuttle on the planet of junk. But then, of course, as we know what happens, the sweeps and the Decepticons pretty much completely explode it and destroy it. But I think it's a pretty fun reference. To be honest, if I were to choose to, you know, remove this accessory and maybe add ratchets for the arms and the legs moving out, I probably would have chosen that option over this one because it's a nice reference, but I definitely think the ratchets in the actual figure are more important. That is just my opinion anyway, but it's a pretty fun weapon. I do like the silver and the scope work, and you can, as you would guess, attach any of his effects pieces or any effects pieces from previous figures onto there. I think that looks pretty cool. And you can store this weapon in two different ways. So one being, as you would probably expect, the hand, but the second way is actually at the back of the figure. So there is this tab on the actual weapon and a slot on the back of the figure, and this just tabs into place nice and securely like that. And as for his last accessory, is this huge classic rifle that we're used to seeing Ultra Magnus with, and overall pretty much the same, silver design and pinups there. And again, just like that welding weapon, you can attach his blaster pieces or any others to the weapon, and I think that looks pretty cool. And just putting that off to the side, you also can store this on the back or on the hand. So again, that same connection, tab and slot, and just tab that into place like that. And there we have the accessory storage on the back, which I think is pretty cool. But of course, the main way you're going to want to store these weapons in his hand so he can be ready for anything on the battlefield. So just take those off and flip them back to the front, and you can put this weapon in his hand, which looks so cool. There we have the fully finished and complete Ultra Magnus. And that is it for accessories. Let's now get down to some comparisons. Now for some comparisons, here he is with the Transformers Kingdom Commander Class Rodimus Prime. And I have to say, both Transformers G1 Season 3 characters side by side look absolutely awesome. And I think the scaling definitely looks really good. And also do let me know in the comment section down below of all the Commander Class figures Hasbro has released so far, and the Transformers Legacy and in the Stu series, which one is your favorite? Also, just speaking in the future, which Commander Class figure would you like to see next? And I have to say, probably right now, if I had to pick my favorite, Ultra Magnus might be my favorite. But I definitely think they look very cool side by side. And now for another Season 3 comparison, here he is with Galvatron. They look absolutely awesome side by side. And no disrespect to the Kingdom Leader class Galvatron, but I would love to see a Commander class Galvatron. That would be absolutely awesome to see. Hopefully, maybe just a couple years from now, 4 or 5, we could get one. That would be absolutely amazing. And that is it for that comparison. So now for some other Stu Series 86 comparisons. Here he is with the 86 Ironhide. I think they look pretty cool side by side. And for one final comparison, here he is with the 86 Deluxe Class Brawn. And that is it for comparisons. So now quickly taking a look at Ultra Magnus's features and gimmicks, starting off with the spring-loaded chest feature. If you do hinge up this entire blue panel or blue section, both the chest doors will swing open to reveal the included matrix and a matrix chamber. It's a very simple process. You just get this entire blue panel here, just hinge this entire section up. As you can see, both chest doors will spring into action, swing open, and of course reveal the included matrix and a matrix chamber. I really did take a look at the matrix earlier when I was showing off all the other accessories and taking a look at the details, so I'm not really going to get into that right now, but if you don't know, it is removable. And also, if you don't know, I'm pretty sure it's the exact same sculpt of matrix we've seen with past figures like the Earthrise Optimus Prime, the Kingdom Commander Class Rodimus. I'm pretty sure we saw the same one with the Shatterglass Ultra Magnus and the Shatterglass Optimus. My point being, we've seen it a lot of times, but quickly taking a look at the details of the actual matrix chamber, which I actually have not already taken a look at during this video or review so far. We have some really nice metallic blue and silver, and I actually do like how they actually have some sculpted in details and some pin-ups on pretty much the back side or the other side of the door, because they really didn't have to. They could have had them be really plain and boring because you barely ever see them, but they actually decided to add some details, and I do like the transparent dark red for the actual doors or kind of the window sections. I think that's a really nice detail. And as for closing or kind of finishing this gimmick, if you do want to close up the chest, you just swing these doors back and get this entire section and close that over the top. And there is the first feature or gimmick of Ultra Magnus. So now for Ultra Magnus's second gimmick or feature, you can actually recreate his death from the 1986 film with this figure. So if you don't know about that death or that scene, I'll give a bit of context and some backstory to that. So in the 1986 film, the Autobots are on the planet of junk, and they're trying to run away and evade the sweeps and Galvatron, but unfortunately Ultra Magnus does end up quartered by Galvatron and the sweeps, and he actually tries to use the Matrix of Leadership to light their darkest hour and defeat the Decepticons, but it doesn't work because he's not a Prime and he's not the right person to use it. So it doesn't work for him, and Galvatron Galvatron opens fire and pretty much obliterates him. He's destroyed. He falls into a ton of pieces, and Galvatron takes the Matrix and leaves. He's no longer in that scene. So you can actually recreate that scene where Galvatron defeats him and destroys him. You can actually remove both his arms, both his legs, and recreate some really cool battle scenes and some poses. I actually have a few in my opening intro. If you missed that, of course, go back and watch that. But how you can do this, you actually can, of course, as I said, do it with all the arms and legs, but I'm only going to do one because how you do it, how you remove the limb is pretty much the exact same process for all the limbs. So I really don't think I need to show that same process 4 times. I think that would be a bit repetitive. So I'm just going to do this arm here, but what you're going to do is turn to the back of the figure or the back of the arm. You're actually going to hinge this entire section all the way up and out. And you might actually think this looks a bit similar because the entire sort of slider or connection system for the arms and legs is actually quite similar to the Combiner Wars combiners and the most recent Transformers Legacy Minosaur, because there's actually this little spring-loaded feature and it really just kind of slides on and tabs in or kind of attaches to the figure. So all you really need to do is just kind of squeeze this entire red section and the arm will just slide off. And how to actually, of course, close this back, of course, you really just fold this entire section there, and there you have one limb or one arm off. And you can do the exact same process for the other limbs if you want to. It's the exact same process and connection, but you've actually removed one of his arms so you can recreate that iconic death scene. That's pretty much it for Ultra Magnus's gimmicks. Let's now get down to transformation. So now for transformation, what you want to do is push the head as far as back as you can go, and then you can actually go to the back of the figure. You can actually hinge the arms out just to get some out and clearance. We're actually going to fully collapse the entire leg using this entire back hinge and ratchet section. So just fully hinge this up and collapse it like that. So this is what the leg looks like for the Robo mode, and this is what you want it to look like for the truck and trailer mode. So again, just use that entire hinge and ratchet section and just fully hinge up and collapse the entire leg like that. And you can move the arms back down, and we can actually go back to the front of the figure. And of course, let me just quickly kind of readjust him and get him back to his usual configuration and look. You can actually go to the shoulder, untab this entire panel at the shoulder. There's a tab at the shoulder and a slot on the actual panel, and do the exact same thing on the other side. Just hinge it up. And then we're actually going to fully extend and completely unravel this entire shoulder and arm section. As you can see, there's quite a few panels that were just folded up, and there's quite a few tabs and slots, and that's how all that was kind of compacted and compressed against the figure. And again, just fully extend this entire section out as far as you can, just to get enough space to actually mess with the chest and transform the chest, because that's what we're going to do right now. So then you're going to get these 2 panels here, hinge them out. There is 2 tabs on both sides of the chest, and of course corresponding slots on the actual inside of those panels. And you can actually get this entire chest panel here, hinge this entire section up like that, and again, make sure the head is pushed back or it will actually really mess with the steps you're about to do. And then again, just untab this entire section here. You're actually going to hinge it over the head, and that's why the head has to be pushed back, because if it's not, it'll actually get caught on these 2 smokestacks, and it'll just really mess with the transformation, and it'll be a real pain. So just push that back, and then you'll be fine, because as you can see, the head just kind of fit through that entire cavity there. And then you can actually get the smokestacks, just push these up as much as you can, and you might have to kind of fix them later because they're just on pins and they're quite loose, so you might have to straighten them up once you're done with the actual transformation. And then you're actually going to go to the back, the entire back here, and if you're wondering how all this was tabbed into place, there's actually a tab on one of those panels that I just kind of extended or brought out, and of course there's a slot in this actual panel here, and that's how that entire section was kind of locked into place. And then you're going to get the entire backpack, just get this section, fold this out, and it's actually on a hinge, and then you're just going to flip this forward like that. So how you know you're actually doing it right, I'm actually going to move the camera up so you can see what I'm doing, but how you know you're actually doing this right is make sure this entire backpack section used to be at the back, but now it's actually pretty much all the way up at the top of the figure. Then you know you're actually in the right step or kind of in the right position for the transformation. And then you can actually get these 2 side panels, just kind of hinge them out so you can see what you're doing. Hopefully I can show this as the best I can. This part's pretty messy and complex, but you're going to make sure the head is pushed back pretty much level or flush with this entire backpack section. There's the small panel here. You're going to bring this down, and actually using that exact same cavity that we used for the head earlier, that's just going to fit through that space right there and actually fold up and pretty much cover up the entire head for the truck mode. So that's just going to fold down and tab into place, as you see right there. And then actually what I'd advise doing is pretty much just bring the entire figure and just put it flush with the surface you're using. You technically don't have to do this step now. You could have Ultra Magnus still standing up on his two legs if you wanted to. I just find it a bit easier to actually lay the figure out because it gets pretty messy and pretty big pretty fast. So I always just found it a bit easier, but you can really transform it however you wish in whatever order you want. But then you're actually going to get this entire chest panel section here. It's actually on a hinge. There's a hinge at pretty much the smokestack region, and there's also a hinge pretty much at the base or kind of the bottom section of this panel. You're going to want to make sure the entire chest panel section here is not flush. You want it to be angled, or these panels will not be able to fit inside the entire front of the truck. So just make sure they're kind of angled and slanted, as you can see there. Then that way you can actually fold in both these panels on the side, and that means you're doing it correctly. Then you're actually going to get these side panels, these sort of side window door pieces, and there is a tab there, and there is a slot on the inside. This entire panel here is actually on a double hinge, so make sure you actually fold up using that double hinge and then tab that into place like that. And then of course you can do the exact same process on the other side. So use that double hinge, and then of course there's two tabs, two slots, and that is just going to tab into place like that. And then you can actually go to the front. There's actually an entire panel underneath this entire section here. You can fold that out like that. But before you fold out this secondary panel, you can actually push both wheels down and through, and they should pop out on pretty much the side of the truck, the front portion of the truck. And then you can actually fold out this secondary panel here, the front windscreen of the truck. And there is two slots and two tabs, and of course corresponding slots and tabs on this actual panel. And that will just all tab into place like that. And then again, just make sure these smokestacks are nice and straight. And then we're actually going to pretty much go to the bottom of the legs and feet of the figure. And again, I might have to kind of readjust the camera because this figure is quite big and messy, and I want to make sure you can see what I'm doing. So the wheels are actually slightly hinged up for the remote mode because of course you don't want the wheels flush with the feet, or it'll be very hard to stand the figure. But for the truck mode, for the truck and trailer mode, you're actually going to hinge them down. So just slightly hinge them down. It's a very minimal difference. If you can see, this is what you're going to want to look like for the truck and trailer mode. This is what you're going to want to have the wheels look like for the remote mode. So again, just use that small hinge these down like that, and those will just soft click into place. And now for one big massive step, you're actually going to get this entire section here and just hinge this all the way up on those clicky ratchets. I bet you probably heard those. So again, just hinge those up all the way like that, and you can probably see where I'm pointing. There is a tab on this leg and a slot on this one, and that is just going to tab in nice and securely. Make sure that's nice and squeezed together because you don't want it untabbing later with the rest of the transformation. So there we have that entire back section all done. And then you can get this small little square. If it hasn't already, sometimes they actually kind of come loose, but you can just push that up on both sides. And it's actually in a small little slider. For some reason on this side, for my figure or my copy of this figure, it's actually a lot more tight on this side. I really don't know why, but you're going to push this forward for the truck and trailer mode. And again, do the exact same thing on the other side. Just push this forward, and we'll come back to that a little bit later in the transformation. Then we're actually going to focus on this kind of main midsection, or kind of the chest section of the remote. There's this entire section. You're actually going to push this little kind of stomach piece in. It's just going to fold in like that using that hinge, and this entire section here is going to rotate all the way around. And one way you can know, maybe if you're confused, like which way is the correct way for the truck and trailer mode, so you're going to want to have these 2 points kind of facing towards the back of the truck, and for the robot mode, of course, you're going to have these 2 points facing down towards the crotch. That's the way you know you're doing it correctly. And they're going to fold both these panels in like that. You can actually get this entire crotch piece. This is going to fold back. There was a tab there and a slot there. That's how that was tabbed into place. And there's these side kind of little front leg panels here. You're just going to fold these up. There's a tab on the actual panel and a slot on the crotch. That is just going to fold into place and tab in. Fold into place and tab in. And now we can actually start transforming the arm. So I'm going to go a bit slow on this arm, and I'll go a bit quicker on the other one, because if you don't know the transformation, all the steps for each arm is the exact same way. So whatever steps I do in this that I'm about to show you are the exact same way and repeat it on the other one. So what I'm going to do is actually bring out and fold out this entire forearm guard panel. There's of course 2 slots, 2 tabs, and just fold this down to actually fully cover and conceal the hand, and close that up like that. And you can actually get this entire section here. It's actually going to fold all the way out like that, and you might actually have to kind of move some pieces around because it gets pretty big. And then you can actually just lock these pieces into place. There's these 2 panels on pretty much the top and bottom of the arm. Again, unfortunately on my copy on this arm, they're a bit loose, so I do apologize if it comes on tabs. You really just have to tap it back into place. But on the other one, it's really nice and secure. It could just be kind of the luck of a draw. It might just be some bad tolerances, but those will just tab into place like that. And you can actually get this entire shoulder panel here. This will actually just flip forward and tab in place, and you can actually use the ratchet pretty much at the shoulder, and you're just going to hinge the entire arm all the way around. As you can see, it did come untabbed, but you can just tab it back into place. So just hinge this entire section of back like that, and again, just kind of make sure to tab that back into place. It's a bit unfortunate, it's kind of inconvenient, but a very simple fix. So there we have one arm fully done, and we're going to do the exact same steps on this arm here. So again, just open up the entire form, just hinge this entire section down to fully conceal and cover the hand. Close that up, the 2 tabs, 2 slots like that. Excuse me. And then you're just going to bring this entire arm fully out and extend it like that, and then you can get those locking mechanisms, as I said before, definitely more secure on this side. There's a tab on the actual flap and a slot on the actual arm, and that will just lock nice and securely like that. Then you're going to bring this panel here, fold this down and into place, and just get the entire ratchet section at the shoulder and just rotate this all the way back like that, and there we go. And then what you want to do is pretty much get this entire hinge section, the shoulder section that I did show before in the beginning part of this transformation segment, and you're just going to fold this entire section up and into place like that. And how all this is going to tab into place is there is a tab on the actual form guard, and there's a slot where that square I was showing before, and that's just going to tab into place like that. And make sure this entire side section is flush and clean. Don't make sure it's not kind of angled and messed up, or you won't be able to actually align it with the other arm. But we're going to do the exact same steps on this side, so just hinge this entire section up, and this actually will tab together. So there's a tab on this shoulder right here, and of course 2 tabs right here, corresponding slots, and of course a slot right there. So all that will just tab into place like that. And there's actually some more connections at the back that I'll show you in just a sec. So there's again that tab and that square like that, and how all of this is going to tab together is there is a tab on this side and a slot on this side, and that will just tab together like that. Make sure all of this is nice and secure and squeezed together. You might have to kind of re-tab some things back into place, and there we have pretty much the entire roof somewhat done. You actually have to bring out these little panels here. They're just going to kind of fill in those spaces, those gaps that we had before, and do the exact same thing on the other side. Just fold that little square, that panel out, just to kind of fill in that space, and you can actually bring out this panel here. It can be a bit difficult. You're just going to fold this out, and how this is tabbed into place is there is a tab right there and a slot on pretty much the back side of the panel. You can actually hinge up the secondary panel right here, and there is a small little kind of latch or a little clip, and there is a slot on the inside of that panel, and that will just tab into place like that. We can do the exact same step on the other side, so just flip this out, bring up the secondary panel, and tab that into place like that, and there we go. And now for the last remaining few steps, you can actually go to the underside of the truck and trailer. There's 2 sets of wheels on both sides. You're just going to fold these out like that. And as you can see, there's this entire kind of slider section. You're going to bring the entire truck and trailer back to how it typically would be. You're actually going to pretty much grab the back of the trailer and the front of the truck and just pretty much pull them apart like that and extend it. And that is it for Transformation for Ultra Magnus. So let's now take a look at the details. Here we have Ultra Magnus in his truck and trailer mode. Let's take a look at the details. Starting at the very front, it's like the silver and red for the entire front grille section and bumper section, with some nice black for the tire and some silver for the wheel. It's like how they actually repeated that exact same wheel design for all the wheels. And if you don't know, all the wheels are pins. This figure actually does roll like an absolute dream in his truck mode. I just like the entire white base color for the truck, and there's some nice clear plastic for the windows and the windscreen section with some small sculpted in details like the little mirrors there. And there's actually a small little ladder sculpted in as well. It's like the smokestacks also done in white with a very classic Autobot symbol on the side of the trailer. There's actually another one on the top, and I do have to say pretty much all of the details on this side I'm about to show are pretty much exactly repeated on the other side as well, so I really don't need to show both sides. But if we do look at this side here, there's actually some nice mechanical and kind of tubing and wiring sculpted along the side here with some red as well, and some more kind of pipes and tubing and wiring with that same wheel design repeated at the back. And of course, you do have the entire roof here and the intersection. And if you want to see what the back of the trailer looks like, I think overall, not too bad. I was actually pretty tired of seeing Ultra Magnus's feet stick out with the Siege and the Kingdom versions of Ultra Magnus. I definitely think this looks a lot better. These are his feet and the front of the legs, but it just looks so much more cohesive and simple and not nearly as ugly. That was actually one of the other problems with the Siege and Kingdom one. It was actually unlevel. The entire feet were pretty much just pointing straight up with the back of the trailer. This actually completely flat and rolls very well across the ground. But as you can see, the other side, pretty much those exact same details repeated, and again rolls pretty well across any surface. And that is it for details. So now for accessory storage, you can pretty much store all of them. So the blaster pieces can store using any MechTick port you want across the entire truck or figure. The two kind of shoulder missiles or kind of rocket launchers can store on these ports right there. So there's another one on this side there that can store at the front. Same with this one as well, like that. And the matrix is already stored inside if you want, so you can remove that, but for transformation, you don't have to remove it. You could leave it in the figure, and same as the truck mode, you do not have to remove it. It can stay inside the figure through the whole thing. As for the last two, the blasters, kind of like the welder weapon and the main rifle, you can store them on the side using those MechTick ports, but it doesn't look that great in my opinion. But if you do want, to have no extra pieces or excess pieces off to the side, if you don't want to worry about losing them or falling or getting lost, you can put them all on there, but it doesn't look the greatest to me just sticking them on the side there, so I typically do just leave them off to the side. This is typically my preferred configuration. It's a bit more simple. No, not all the accessories are stored on there. I think it just looks better, but that is it for accessory storage. So now for some comparisons. Here he is with Optimus Prime. Let me grab his trailer so we can have some trailer bots side by side. Two very classic G1 characters. I think they look really cool, and as you can see how massive Ultra Magnus's truck and trailer is compared to Optimus Prime here. Again, as I said before, it was priced as a leader, but Voyager, he's pretty much a Voyager size, like, let's be honest, but they do look absolutely awesome side by side. And that is it for that comparison. Let me just put Optimus Prime off to the side for now. Here he is with Ironhide, 86 Ironhide. And some other comparisons. Here he is with another classic G1 character from G1 Season 3, that being Earthrise RC. And for one final comparison, here he is with 86 Brawn. And that is it for comparisons. So now for features, you can actually do pretty much two different kind of gimmicks or features with the trailer. One way is you can actually pretty much store or kind of display two different deluxes in their alt modes on each floor. So about two deluxes here and two here. You might be able to do one Voyager, one deluxe, really depending on the size of the Voyager. Like a good example is the 86 Hot Rod. That one was priced as a Voyager, and it's, pretty big for a Voyager, but it's, I would definitely say it's kind of just a large deluxe size, if you know what I mean. There's some figures in the Stu series and even in the Legacy line where it's pretty hard to clarify and actually classify, is it a Voyager Deluxe? Because some of them are kind of pushing it with their class or their size. So you probably could, with some specific figures, maybe put a Voyager on there and a Deluxe at the same time. But I do want to quickly show that. So you can put Earthrise RC on top, and you could put Brawn on the inside, and they can ride around in Ultra Magnus, so we can take them to the front of the battlefield, and get into the battle and fight the Decepticons, which I think that's a pretty fun feature. And that is it for one of his features. As for his next one, this does sort of require some transformation or kind of modification of the figure. So you do want to pretty much have the entire trailer facing towards you, facing towards the front. You can actually get these two panels here, hinge them down. And what you can do is actually get the entire roof or top section of the trailer and pretty much untab it from the sides and form this entire ramp so the vehicles can actually, drive up onto the trailer. You could actually do this feature now. You could actually have, Brawn driving into this, first floor, first layer there, and then you can actually untab this, hinge this down. So I'm going to do that right now. So if you do kind of pull these sides out, you can untab the roof like that. So of course there's a tab on this piece and a slot on the inside of this one, and you do want to get both ratchets and just hinge this entire section down like that. And there's the modification or the transformation all done. So you can have, RC driving up like that, or you could have her driving down, into battle like that, which I think is a pretty fun feature. And as for putting this back, just of course get both of those ratchets at the front and just hinge both sections up like that, and tab both these pieces back into place, and also make sure you tab the front back into place, and then just get both these panels here, flip them back up. And that is it for Ultra Magnus's truck and trailer mode. Let's now get down to reverse transformation. So now for reverse transformation, what you want to do is grab the entire front portion of the truck and the back portion of the trailer. You're actually going to compress or push both sections towards each other just like that. And how all this works and operates, if you actually do flip to the bottom side or the underside of the truck and trailer, there's this entire slider section right there. Once on the underside or the bottom side of the truck and trailer, you can actually fold in both sets of wheels on both sides of the truck. Pretty much where the trailer hitch section is, you can just fold in both these wheels. There are 2 wheels on both sides of the truck, so you can just fold those in. Those will just tab in nice and securely like that. And once you've done that step, you can actually just flip the entire truck and trailer back to its original position or configuration. And once you've done that, you can actually focus on kind of the sides of the trailer. There's this entire panel here. You can actually flip this entire section out. How this is tabbed into place is there's this little clip or kind of tab section there. There is a slot on the inside of that panel, and there is a tab right there and a slot on the back side or kind of the back of the entire panel there. And that's just going to tab into place and just fold this entire secondary panel down like that. There's this little cube or kind of square at the roof or top section of the trailer. You can fold in this little panel there like that. And since both sides of the trailer are the exact same, you're just going to repeat those exact same steps on the other side of the trailer. So you're just going to flip this entire piece around. Of course, you can fold this panel out, untab it, tab this in, and of course get that secondary panel there, fold this down, get that little square, fold that little panel in, and there we have those steps. Then we're actually going to focus at kind of the end or the back section of the trailer. We're actually going to untab the roof from these side panels here. So you're just going to untab it like that. It's actually a very secure connection, so just disconnect it like that. And how all this is tabbed in place is there is tabs on both sides of this roof piece, and there are slots on these little squares, and you're actually going to use the slider mechanism, slide this back and fold that little square in. Do the exact same steps and process on the other side. For some reason on my copy on this side, it's actually much more secure and tight. I really don't know why. The slider is super tight, so you're just going to slide that back, fold that little square in, and now for actually raising the roof, so you can actually split in half. I actually advise to pretty much use these ratchets at the shoulders, hinge this entire section up just a few clicks, because if you don't raise the entire roof or the arms, will actually get caught on these side sections. It's not a mandatory step, it's just you don't want them bumping into there and maybe causing some paint chips or some damage to the figure. Then you're actually going to pretty much split both sections, the front of the roof and the back of the roof, in half, and just hinge these sections all the way to the side like that. As you can see, this figure can get very big, very messy, very fast. So I'm going to try and do the steps as clear as possible because it can get pretty complex and pretty complicated. And how the entire roof or arms were tabbed into place. So there is a tab here and of course a corresponding slot there, and there's 2 slots and a corresponding 2 tabs, and of course there is a tab here and a corresponding slot on the other side. Now what I would advise to do is actually hinge the shoulder or the arm just 1 click in, just to get of course some extra space and clearance, because you really don't need this thing to be bigger than it already is. So just kind of hinge those in just to kind of make things a bit tighter and neater. Then you're actually going to get these 2 little panels, just hinge these out. This will actually kind of come into play in just a sec. We're actually going to focus on kind of the interior of the trailer because we really couldn't access it before because the roof was on there. But we're going to get these 2 panels here. Unfortunately, on my copy, this one never really wants to stay tabbed in, but you're just going to untab them if they haven't already, and you're actually just going to fold these back. There is a tab on the side on the inside of this panel, and of course there is a corresponding slot. There's also a slot on the inside of this panel, and there's a tab on the actual section we're going to tab it into, so that will just fold down and tab into place like that. So it does actually make a very big click. Actually, the first time when I first transformed this figure, I was wondering, did they actually tab in, because it's such a tight, very secure connection. You just have to apply a bit more force than you typically do. Don't be worried. I was actually very worried the first time around. I had to keep checking the instructions because I was worried I was maybe breaking it. It's just super tight on my copy. It might be loose on others. I really don't know. And then you're actually going to get this entire crotch piece. There's a tab on the actual panel and a slot on the crotch, and that will just fold down and tab into place. So hopefully you can see this. It's a bit hard to show, but there's this entire panel here. We're actually going to spin this entire section around. It's actually kind of on a little pin that will just flip around like that. And there's this entire sort of stomach region panel that's actually just going to fold up and just slide into place like that. It's a bit hard to show because, of course, this thing is kind of laid flat down, but of course you just kind of brought that panel up and this entire section just rotated around like that. Now we're actually going to focus on the arm. So I do have to say all the steps I actually show on this arm are going to be repeated the exact same way on the other arm. So I'm probably going to go kind of slow on this one and a bit quicker on the other one because the steps do repeat as I just said. But what you're going to do is go to the shoulder. There's this entire panel here. This is just going to flip up. There's a tab there and a slot right there, and that is just going to tab into place. Then you can actually disconnect these little locking mechanisms like that. And again, interesting enough, on this arm, the locking mechanisms are actually very loose, but on the other one, they're really, really tight. So just loosen those if they haven't already. And then you can actually open up this panel here, pretty much where the arm is in the forearm. And as you can see, there's 2 tabs, 2 slots, and you're just going to pretty much fold this entire section to form the forearm. And those same connections as I showed before will just fold up like that. Then you're actually going to kind of angle out the shoulder and arm, and this entire assembly will fold up and just slide into place like that. And then you can actually get the entire shoulder with those ratchets. Just rotate the entire arm and shoulder back down into the correct orientation and position. There we have entire arm and shoulder all done. Then we're actually going to flip this entire section all the way around and repeat those exact same steps again. So you're going to get that panel at the front, fold this up like that. There is a slot and a tab that will just tab into place like that. Get these little locking mechanisms. Again, for some reason on this side, they're so much more secure and tight. I guess that might be a good thing, but just loosen those. There is a tab in the actual panel that you hinged up, and there's a slot on the actual arm. And then you're actually going to kind of go to the forearm or the hand, just open up this entire section here. There is 2 slots, 2 tabs, and this will just fold up into place like that and use those same connections. That's just going to tab into place. Then you can actually kind of move the shoulder and arm out, fold that entire section up like that, and then you can actually get those ratchets at your shoulder and just rotate this entire assembly all the way around like that. And there we have both arms all done. We're actually going to focus on the legs now. So you're actually going to go to pretty much the back portion of the trailer. I'm actually going to adjust the camera so you can see what I'm doing. You're going to split the legs, or this entire back portion of the trailer, in half. And these entire sections are actually on ratchets. You're just going to hinge this entire assembly in, and that will just lock into place like that. Do the exact same process on your side. That's just going to lock into place like that. It might take a bit of force because, you know, the ratchets, they're big and strong and sturdy, so you actually have to push it quite a bit. Now for this next step, it's actually very important. It's a minor step, but a very important one. So these 2 wheel sections, you actually do want to hinge up. If you don't, you actually won't be able to pose Ultra Magnus steadily on a steady ground, because the wheels, of course, will actually be on the bottom of his feet. So you actually won't be able to stand, sturdy and steady on any surface. You just have to hinge them up a tad bit, and they will click into place like that. And so I can actually show you kind of a before and after. So you want it to look like this for the road mode, and this like for the truck and trailer mode. So just hinge that up and tab into place. Unfortunately, my copy, they don't really want to stay tabbed in. They don't move. They just don't want to stay in those designated slots and tabs that actually Hasbro made and designed for the figure. Now we're going to focus on this entire front portion, which is definitely the most complex and hard portion of the transformation. So I'm going to go kind of slow so you can understand and see the steps. I might actually have to sit the figure up at some point once I finish. So for now, I'm actually going to leave it like this because it might be a bit easier, but I might have to move it in just a sec. But what you want to do is actually get the entire front portion of the truck, just hinge this entire section down. You're going to fold this panel in on that hinge. You can actually get both wheels on both sides, and these will just flip up like that. And then you can actually get this entire section here, fold this in and under the wheels. And there's these 2 panels on the sides, fold these down like that. And there is a tab on the actual panel and a slot on that secondary panel, and that is just going to tab into place like that. Repeat the exact same process on the side, just tab that in, and make sure this entire section is fully compressed against the entire bottom half of the figure, or won't be able to tab in later. And then you're actually going to get this entire roof section here, hinge this out, get these 2 panels here, hinge these out. And then what you want to do is actually get this panel here. It's pretty hard to show, hopefully I can show, but there is a panel right there that's actually covering Ultra Magnus's head. You're actually going to flip this up and actually push it through that open cavity that we have there. And that is just going to fold back. And there is a tab on the inside of that panel, and of course a slot on the actual panel there, and that will just tab and lock into place like that. And then you're actually going to go to the front. You can actually get the entire smokestacks. These will just fold down like that. and then I'm actually going to stand the figure up. So you might not be able to see everything for a bit of time. I will have to adjust the camera so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just going to hinge the camera up all the way so you can see what I'm doing. So now you're actually going to get the entire backpack region and just hinge this entire section back. Make sure the head does not get caught on this entire backpack region here. Again, I might actually have to hinge the camera up even more so you can see what I'm doing. This thing gets very tall very fast, but as you can see, of course, Ultra Magnus has antennas, so they might get caught in this entire back section. So make sure that doesn't happen, because you can mess up some stuff a little bit later on. So you're just going to fold this entire assembly back, and that will just lock into place. Give it a good squeeze like that. And then just make sure that panel is folded down, and then just make sure the head is fully pushed back. You're actually going to get this entire section here, fold this down, and just make sure the arms are out of the way and don't interfere with the transformation. You're going to fold this entire assembly down. There is 2 tabs and 2 slots on the inside of this panel that is just going to tab into place like that. And let me just quickly straighten up the figure and adjust the camera so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. And then you can bring the head up like that. Now we can actually focus on kind of installing or kind of tabbing in the arms and the shoulders. So there's this panel here that's just going to tab into place, tab that other one into place, and just kind of hinge these little red panels up just to get some extra space. As you can see, there is pretty much 3 panels. There's one here, and pretty much at the shoulder. And this entire section is going to fold in and collapse like that. And there's that red panel there. There is a tab on the actual shoulder and a slot where that panel is, and that will just lock into place like that. And also at the back, as you can hopefully see, the entire sort of 3 panels actually tab into the entire backpack section. I do actually have to give props to Hasbro. I was actually pretty worried about the entire backpack section and shoulder section maybe being loose and untabbing a lot, because, you know, he's a pretty big, heavy figure. He has very big shoulders, but it's actually very secure. So definitely kudos to Hasbro for that. And of course, you're going to do the exact same process on the other side. If you want to see that connection, there is a tab there and a slot right there. So that's just going to fold in, and of course, just fold that entire section up, tab that in place, get that entire little locking mechanism there that will just fold over that tab like that. And there we go. And there we go. And now for the very last step, as you can see, he does look quite short and his legs actually look quite compact. You're actually going to kind of move the arms out just to get some extra space. You're going to get these ratchets at the knees and legs. Just fully extend the leg like that. Fully extend the leg like that. There we go. And let me just quickly straighten up the figure. Let me bring him back to the front. And that is it for reverse transformation. Let's now get down to the final thoughts. Now for my final thoughts on the Transformers Studio Series 86 Commander Class Ultra Magnus. If you didn't know, Ultra Magnus is the first Commander Class figure in the Studio Series lines. This opens up a whole Pandora's box of possibilities or options for future figures. Starting in Ultra Magnus' Robo Mode, I think Hasbro did an amazing job recreating Ultra Magnus' appearance from the G1 cartoon into this figure. I love the light blue light piping in the eyes. It just makes the whole figure come to life. Ultra Magnus also has this awesome spring-loaded feature in the chest where both chest doors can swing open to reveal the included matrix. So you can have Ultra Magnus hold onto the matrix, but it's a bit difficult because the matrix is quite small for how big this figure is. Ultra Magnus also has another feature where you can remove Ultra Magnus' arms and legs so you can recreate his death by Galvatron on the planet Junk from the 1986 film. As for his other accessories, Ultra Magnus includes the Omega Supreme blaster pieces, just in a slight different shade of red. It also includes his classic silver rifle and a welding weapon, so you can recreate the scene from the 1986 film where Ultra Magnus and the Autobots are repairing the ship. His final accessory are his 2 identical classic shoulder missiles, which can store, as you would guess, on the figure shoulders. As for the figure's articulation, I think it lives up to the expectations that the previous Commander Class figures have set. Several areas that stand out to me are the finger articulation and the nice clickety ratchets in the legs and arms. One area that could be better is in the shoulders or the arms. The arm moving out doesn't have any ratchets, which was a bad idea in my opinion, considering how big Ultra Magnus' shoulders are. They are way down a lot. As for transformation, the transformation is quite complex and evolving, but not to a point where it's hard. It just takes some time to learn. Now for Ultra Magnus' truck mode, it is just a massive piece that has some very impressive engineering. What is cool about this figure and this truck mode is that the robot mode is one solid piece and it transforms into 2 separate pieces, a truck and a trailer. Another great thing about this truck mode is all the accessories can be stored on the truck. Also, Also, about 2 deluxes can fit on each floor of the trailer. I also do like how all the wheels of the truck mode are pinned so the truck can roll very smoothly across any surface. Since this is my 2000 subscriber special, here are my 2 random subscriber shoutouts. So shout out to WillZone and JazzTF86. Thank you for subscribing and for supporting the channel. Thank all of you for 2000 subscribers. Let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you next time.